What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show, and I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. Last week, I talked a little bit about EA Sports College Football 25, among a bunch of other sports topics, but as we speak, it is out now for all of those who pre-ordered it, and a bunch of grown men, like I said last week, as we speak, are calling off work to play EA Sports College Football 25, the first college athletic game released on consoles and PC for the first time in 11 years. It's going to be a crazy wild ride, and not one person is going to beat me online. I'm making that vow that not one single person is going to beat me one-on-one online gameplay when it comes to this new game. I won't allow it to happen, and it's not going to happen. I'm going to be one of the best, that's for sure. So as you all know, I'm a Bucked Up ambassador, so use promo code SHOW32. Get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout orders at buckedup.com. So like I said last week, I talked a little bit about the new up-and-coming college football game, which is out now. So I highly recommend you all check it out, and I'm definitely going to right after I leave here today. But we're going to talk about... We have a couple sports topics we're going to talk about today, but I want to start off the show with a little bit something different. I don't know what we have really come to as a country, in all honesty. It seems, like I said before in previous episodes, when I talk about mental health or anything like that going on just in the world in general, well, this past weekend, as we all know, at least I hope everyone has seen it so far, is that former President Donald Trump was injured in an assassination attempt on the campaign trail in Butler, PA. You know, when it comes to politics, everybody has their own opinions about it. Everybody. But why do some people feel the need? Like, what exactly would any of that solve? As much as I dislike Joe Biden and a lot of Democratic issues and everything like that, I don't wish anything like this to happen to anybody. Whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're independent, it doesn't matter who you align with, what your beliefs are. You can't honestly tell me, no matter which way you lean, whether you hate them or love them, anybody deserves to go through that. You know, I'm just happy President Trump is okay. Unfortunately, there were spectators who were critically injured and another one who was unfortunately killed. So hearts and prayers out to the families of all the affected of this tragedy and something just that shouldn't happen in our country. We have been bragging for a long time that America is the greatest country on planet Earth. And I believe it is, to some extent, when you don't leave it up to politicians and everything that they run for and stand for in some cases. But when it comes to politics, when it comes to agendas, obviously everybody has them. But nobody in their right mind can actually be okay or actually think that an action like this is okay. An assassination attempt on a political figure? Are you kidding me? What has come to our country? Like, what on earth are we doing? This is the most shocking, honestly, shocking news I've seen in a long time because, you know, there have been assassination attempts before in the past, some successful, some unsuccessful, but this is like really the true first one that I've had to like sit through and watch and experience. You know, back when I can remember other stories that my grandparents used to tell me and my parents used to tell me of, you know, what it was like when, you know, John F. Kennedy happened, when President Ronald Reagan was shot, you know, and now all of us are witnessed, you know, what almost happened to Donald Trump. You know, it's like I said, no matter what side you're on, no matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, conservative, liberal, it doesn't matter. We're all Americans. We all have to treat each other with love and respect and dignity. It's always been okay to disagree with other people for their opinions. It's always been okay to have those differences of opinions. That's what has separated America from the majority of the world and the quality of life. That is what has separated us. The fact that we can be different in this nation. The fact that we don't need to be scrutinized for our opinions and what we believe in. And yet, I feel like all of that has been, really lost over the past couple years, especially from the years of 2019, the end of 2019, through COVID and to now. America has been spiraling out of control when it comes to everything that goes on in this country, as far as to what is taught in schools, what really it means to be an American. I feel like a lot of that stuff is, it's unfortunate just the way that a lot of policies and, priorities have aligned themselves with politicians in America. And I'm just happy that President Donald Trump is okay. And I hate to break the bad news to Democrats, but guess what? Your candidate is done. Joe Biden's done. The fact of the matter is that I talked about the debate and what a shit show it was. Sorry for cursing, but I talked about how putrid it made him look and it made the Democrats look. Something like this brings a country together. An issue that happens such as this brings people together and rallies people in a different way because, something like this, something unprecedented, something so shocking and something so tragic really ignites a fire under the American people. It doesn't matter what it is. When tragedy hits, when circumstances are bad, that it seems to me that's when America really rallies together. And I think a lot of people, myself included, are going to rally around Trump because he's been at the forefront fighting for the American people and fighting for this country. Because I've been on the record before saying of how putrid I think some of the policies that the Democrats have are horrible, and where our priorities align when it comes to everything going on in America. Some priorities are out of line and ridiculous. I pray to God that we get back on track one day. And for all intents and purposes, Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. Again, I think Biden is done for. I think the Democratic Party is done for. I honestly would not be shocked of this outcome, and I don't think anybody's going to be shocked at the outcome when Donald Trump, come November 5th, will be the next president for the second time of the United States of America. It's a tragedy, and, God bless him and his family, and God bless those who, were affected by the shooting. I run out of words to say because when it comes to a situation like this, because it's just something that shouldn't happen. This is something that should not happen in our country, and yet it does. Why do we feel that this, when people are pissed off, when people are angry, I've been pissed off and angry. I never thought about doing something like this. No normal person out there thinks of doing something like this. It's funny how everything works in this country. It really is. Like, it fascinates me that people can stoop so low to what they want to do because someone pissed them off or they disagree with policy or person. This is just stuff that should not happen in this country. This is just an action nobody should be thinking about. There's no reason any normal person would be thinking of doing something like this. It's tragic that how far America has fallen when it comes to everything that we hold value in this country. And it's sad to see that there are still people out there who are willing to go to such extreme circumstances in making them feel like they need to correct something or they need to do something You know how you fight your battles in this country? You go vote. That's how you settle differences when it comes to political opinions. Nobody in the right mind, no normal person, resorts to trying to do an action such as this. It's tragic. And yet again, the fact that Trump stood up on stage after it happened, after the bullet grazed his ear, which, thank God. Again, thank God. But the picture of Donald Trump with his fist in the air to his entire rally and to the American people telling them to fight, that picture will live on forever, really. That picture is already iconic. And, you know, that's the biggest issue. I've said this when it comes to difference of opinions and everything. If you have a problem with policy, if you have a problem with a politician, you vote. That is how you solve issues that you disagree with. That's how you get people out of office. That's how it should work in this country. That's how it should work. If you have an issue with a candidate or a politician when it comes to their policies and what they value most for the American people, you settle it at the ballot. What normal person would do what this man tried to do? Nobody. Nobody in their right mind tries to do something like this. Nobody. But it's tough just to see something like this, because me personally, I never think about something like this. I never think about anything that could happen like this. It's always a shock when it happens. But for all intents and purposes, you're looking at your next president of the United States, Donald Trump. You're looking at him, and come November 5th, I think Trump is going to win in a landslide. And here's how I can possibly tell that. First of all, he's already destroying Biden in the polls. He's already doing that. Biden already did enough self-damage to his own image and his own policy and his own party to prevent him from winning. Biden is done whatsoever. We know this. We've known this, especially since that tragic debate, especially of how much of an idiot Biden was on stage then. He already made a fool out of himself once and really turned the whole Democratic Party against himself. So he did that partially by himself. But if you look back in time a little bit, a couple decades ago when President Reagan was shot, President Reagan won the election by a massive, massive margin. Not only was President Reagan polarizing at the podium and what he was talking about for the American people, you know, people, it seemed like they related to him. Obviously, I didn't live during this time, but my parents and my grandparents did, and the stories they would tell me about them, you know, and just how he was on camera, how he was at the podium, how he carried himself as an individual. Now, like I said, you can agree to disagree with policy making. I get it. But the fact of the matter is, someone tried to assassinate President Reagan all that time ago. That just rallied more people to his cause. That just rallied more people to the causes. And Reagan ended up winning in a massive, massive landslide post-assassination attempt. And I think it's going to be very, very similar to what happened just a couple days ago. People are going to rally around Trump. People are going to rally around this man because he is fighting tooth and nail to bring our country back. And I think he's going to succeed. For all intents and purposes, Donald Trump will be the next president for the second time of the United States of America. And all this, it's crazy to think that this actually happened. I still can't believe it, honestly, in a lot of ways. So, you know, what we know so far, all this information I'm about to read is just provided by NBC News. I'll leave the link in the description if anybody wants to check out the article. But So what we know, President Donald Trump was injured in an assassination attempt at the campaign rally yesterday in Butler, PA. Trump, who emerged with a bloodied face, said he was shot in the ear and described a whizzing sound and a bullet ripping through his skin. Ugh. The FBI said the shooter, identifies as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, was immediately killed by the Secret Service, and there was no motive so far. Again, we'll probably never know because he's gone. The shots at Trump were fired from an elevated position outside the Secret Service's security perimeter for the venue. Sources said it was a semi-automatic rifle, and law enforcement is investigating if the gun was purchased by the shooter's father. Interesting. A spectator was killed and 2 were critically injured in the shooting. The Secret Service said, although it did not provide further details about the victims. Like I said, God bless all those who were affected by this. That's what we know. Obviously, I'm recording this on Sunday, so more information will most likely be out. But like I said, this was a shock. But it's in times like this that we rally together as one nation under God. It's in times like this we need to, unite. No more division. This is what I really want in America. No more division. No more BS policies. Focus on the important things of this country. The economy. Being one nation under God. Good quality. Just good quality of life. I miss that kind of America. This is something that should bring us together. To stop. All, unprecedented. People feel like they need to do the unprecedented to make change. It doesn't need to. That doesn't need to happen like that. You handle situations at the polls. That's how you change. You affect the polls. You go to the polls and you vote. That's how you make your difference. And that's what I'm going to do. But I think everybody in this nation should, I pray for the day that we can all put aside differences of opinion. When we can all have our own opinions and views without facing scrutinization from anybody else. I know it's kind of a pipe dream, but stuff like this is when our nation needs to rally together as one. That's what we need in this country, is a united front again. And for all, like I said multiple times now, that I think you're all looking at the next president of the United States, Donald Trump. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be close whatsoever when the polls start opening. Come this November, I think you're already looking at your next president of the United States. And God bless all those who were affected by this. It's tragic with what happened, but I think it's just sad, seeing someone lose their life and the other 2 bystanders critically injured. And then obviously President Trump, okay, just God bless all those who, were affected by this matter. So that I wanted to start off with that because, as much as people hate politics, as much as people hate my personal opinions on it, even though I smack talk Joe Biden all the time, I wouldn't wish for anything like this to happen. But for all intents and purposes, guess what? The Democrats, they're cooked. The Democrats are done. This election, for all intents and purposes, is pretty much a wrap. It's done. Trump is going to win this election. I don't think there's any candidate that the Democrats can come up with that can go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump. I said that after the debate with Joe Biden, and I'm going to say that now, post-attempt. There is nobody that can compete with Donald Trump in the polls now. All right, so I really wanted to talk about that. It's really not often that a story like that, of that magnitude, breaks. But God bless all those who were affected by that, and God be with them all. So we're going to transition into 3 sports topics that I had for today, that I had picked out today because I was influenced a little bit by other popular talk shows in America, such as The Herd with Colin Cowherd, or ESPN First Take, or Undisputed. The Aaron Rodgers hype for the Jets is a little bit weird. Now, there's some people who criticize the Jets. I was one of them, especially last week when I talked about the Jets and their Super Bowl chances, which, no. I think the Jets finished last in the AFC East this year. But people were talking, I watch these radio shows, I watch these talk shows about how great Aaron Rodgers is. I watch all these takes about he's a bad man. And I love Stephen A. Smith, but is Aaron Rodgers really a bad man? Because, winning is a lot for a quarterback. I think winning defines quarterbacks more than any other accolades, really. Wins and Super Bowl wins. I think that's what defines how great a quarterback truly is in the NFL. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, he's been one of the best quarterback talents the league has ever seen. The Packers literally went from Brett Favre and picked it right up where they left off with Aaron Rodgers, drafting him, I believe it was 2004. But when it comes to Aaron Rodgers' career, is he a top 10 quarterback of all time? I don't know. Is he a top 10 quarterback talent ever? I'd say so. But I can safely say this, and I'm probably going to take some heat for this one. Aaron Rodgers is the most overrated quarterback in the past 20 years in the NFL. He is the most overrated quarterback. Now, I'm not talking about all the MVPs he's won. I'm not talking about all the great seasons he's had as the Packers quarterback. I'm not talking about any of the various records that he holds. I'm not talking about all that. Because I'll say this, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. You heard me say it here. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He is. I'm not going to dispute that. But I also think he is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in recent memory. People talked about him possibly having, what Super Bowl odds do the Jets have? Not much. Aaron Rodgers coming off a terrible torn Achilles injury, and he's not getting any younger. You have Breece Hall at running back, who's coming back from injury. You have a shaky offensive line who, for the better part of the past 7 years, has been the worst offensive line in the NFL. Now, all signs point it should be better. It should be better this year. It should be. But, you knock on wood hoping that everybody stays healthy. So that's that. The defense is solid. Robert Saleh has done a good job with the defense because he knows defense, but he does not know offense. That's for sure. A lot of defensive coaches in this league do not know offense at all. Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's a little bit better out of all of the defensive head coaches, I would say, because he wins more than them, which that's the Mike Tomlin way. Win, baby, win. But when it comes to the Jets and their Super Bowl odds, I think they finished last in the AFC East. But I do think they can contend for the playoffs this year, barring any health issues or injuries from the Jets' offensive line or skill position players. I think the Jets can make a run at the playoffs. Do I think they can make a Super Bowl run? No, absolutely not. So why do I think Aaron Rodgers is a little bit overrated? He has one Super Bowl win and one Super Bowl appearance in his entire career. If you're talking about GOAT conversation, you can't put Aaron Rodgers in that conversation at all. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks you can't put in that GOAT conversation. Here's the GOAT conversation, I would say. Tom Brady, for obvious reasons. Joe Montana, for obvious reasons. And Patrick Mahomes. Already early in his career, He's making waves for GOAT conversation. There's only 3 quarterbacks, in my opinion, that you can put in that conversation of greatest of all time. Aaron Rodgers doesn't come close to that. And I'll tell you why. I have different quarterbacks, and their playoff record, and there's how many Super Bowls they won. So here's the reality of Aaron Rodgers. His last Super Bowl appearance was in 2010 in Super Bowl 45 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers' first and only Super Bowl appearance, which he won, good for him. He has 1 appearance, 1 win, that's it. He has a 12-10 playoff record, 1 career win in the playoffs coming from behind, which is usually being in a big deficit in the fourth quarter, for anybody who doesn't know that, which I would expect all my viewers to know that, really. But Aaron Rodgers, in his career up to this point now as a member of the New York Jets, has a 12-10 playoff record, 1 Super Bowl appearance, and 1 win. You really think he's in the GOAT conversation? Absolutely not. I have a couple other quarterbacks who I think can, relate to Aaron Rodgers. Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford I personally have always thought Matthew Stafford was a little bit better than Aaron Rodgers in some seasons. Obviously, overall talent, I would say Aaron Rodgers is better than Matt Stafford. But is he really? Matt Stafford has a 4-4 record in the playoffs. And he also has 1 Super Bowl appearance and 1 Super Bowl win. Same as Aaron Rodgers. But who's that more of a ding on? Aaron Rodgers or Matt Stafford? Aaron Rodgers has way more playoff games than Matt Stafford. Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers has also had amazing teams with Green Bay. Matt Stafford had to deal with the dumpster fire known as Detroit for the longest time. Detroit wasn't near... For those up-and-coming NFL fans, everybody who's my age and a little bit older knows the doormat that Detroit used to be for the better part of 20 years in the NFL. Once Matt Stafford got there in 2008, things started to shift in the right direction. They started winning more games, but they couldn't make the playoffs because they were always in the division with the Vikings and the Packers. And Aaron Rodgers prime, too, with better Green Bay teams. So we have that. Matthew Stafford ain't a GOAT conversation type quarterback, but can we say he's better than Aaron Rodgers or has had a better career than Aaron Rodgers? No. Maybe not career-wise, but playoff success-wise? They're pretty much the same quarterback. Big Ben Roethlisberger. He has a 13-10 career playoff record, and he has 2 Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowl appearances. The only one he lost was against Aaron Rodgers, first and only. So Big Ben already has a good career compared to Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. How about we move on to Peyton Manning? He has a 14-13 record in the playoffs, and he's got 2 Super Bowls. Okay, we consider him one of the greatest of all time, too. How about Drew Brees? He has a 9-9 playoff record, 1 Super Bowl, 1 Super Bowl appearance, and 1 Super Bowl. So that's pretty much the same level of Aaron Rodgers. But why am I listing all of these? I'll tell you in a second. Now let's do Patrick Mahomes. In his short NFL career, 15-3 in the playoffs, 4 Super Bowl appearances, and 3 Super Bowl wins, and 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Tom Brady, 35-13 in the playoffs, 7 Super Bowl wins. That's the GOAT. That's your GOAT right there. Now, why am I naming some of these quarterbacks when it comes to, putting their playoff records up and their Super Bowls up? Well, it's simple. A lot of people put Aaron Rodgers on a pedestal, and I do not understand it. If you look, Aaron Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl. He has the same amount of Super Bowl wins and appearances as Matt Stafford, who for the longest time was criticized and wasn't considered the guy, and Drew Brees, who we consider is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Aaron Rodgers has only been to one Super Bowl, same as Matt Stafford and Drew Brees. They all won it. But why are we putting Aaron Rodgers on a pedestal when it comes to the kind of quarterback he is? I think he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the past 20 years. And I'm not trying to diss him because he's one of the best talents we've ever seen. And he is one of the best quarterbacks, from a talent perspective that we've ever seen. He's put up great numbers in regular season play. He's put up numbers in the playoffs when he wins, but he doesn't win in the playoffs, really. He's basically a 500 quarterback in the playoffs. And he only has one Super Bowl appearance. But we put him on a pedestal compared to guys like Drew Brees, who not only has... He only has one Super Bowl too, but New Orleans has never been, the most well-run organization. A lot of times they got to the playoffs because Drew Brees willed them to the playoffs. Their defense for a long time was trash, at least towards the back end of Drew Brees' career. Well, either way, the teams that Drew Brees would always go up against, they were just better teams from top to bottom. Big Ben, he's not even considered better than Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, but he's got more Super Bowl appearances and more Super Bowl wins and more playoff wins than Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. He doesn't have the MVPs or the passing title records. I know Drew Brees has the most 5,000-yard passing seasons in the NFL. Big Ben only has one. Aaron Rodgers, I only think, has one or two. But it's like, here's why I mention this. It's because everybody I know and a lot of talk shows in America put Aaron Rodgers on a pedestal when it comes to the best quarterbacks of all time or in the league currently. And I'm here to say, why are we doing that? I'm not questioning him as a player. What I am questioning is, why do we have him on a pedestal? Why is he looked at as almost like the standard of quarterback when he has not been to a Super Bowl since his first and only one back in 2010 with the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 45? It has been so long. I legally couldn't drive the last time Aaron Rodgers made it to a Super Bowl. And and a lot of people are going to sit up there and call him one of the best of all time. I'm not going to disagree with his talent. His talent is unreal. He can still sling the football better than most quarterbacks in NFL history. But the stats speak for itself when it comes to postseason play. And the fact of the matter is, you can add up all the MVPs, all the passing titles. There's a reason Patrick Mahomes is already making waves to become the next GOAT. We talked about him early on in his career, really, really early on, like first 2 years early on, as being, he's going to be one of the best of all time. It's because we can watch and see the talent on display. But the difference is, he wins. He wins. He already has 3 Super Bowl championships. More than Aaron, and more than Aaron will ever get in his entire career, because the New York Jets, with Aaron Rodgers, while they'll contend for the playoffs, they will not contend for a Super Bowl. They're too dysfunctional, and I don't think that the Jets are built for the Super Bowl whatsoever. They can make the playoffs. They can make a run at the playoffs. But even then, they still might finish last in the division. Is Aaron Rodgers really even the best quarterback in division? I would take Josh Allen over him. He's younger. He's stronger. He's more healthy. Would I take Tua over Aaron Rodgers? Currently, at this moment in time, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Would I take anybody? Would I take Drake May? No, he's a rookie. I would take Aaron Rodgers still. But here's my point. The point is that Aaron Rodgers has been put on a pedestal for such a long time for his accomplishments, which are slim to non-existent in postseason play. He has the stats. He has the MVPs. He just does not have the Super Bowl victories. So that's why I bring up all those stats from all those other quarterbacks. It's because you want to put Aaron Rodgers on a pedestal. Well, guess what? There's other quarterbacks who have relatively the same stats or better than Aaron Rodgers in the history of the playoffs. So I think Aaron Rodgers, one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the NFL. not from a talent perspective, but from a winning perspective. All right, so we're going to move on. So I'm going to do something small for these last two segments. I'm going to do something small. So a lot of people that I know always ask my opinion on who I think is going to win the Super Bowl. That's tough. I mean, 32 teams in the NFL, only one can win the Super Bowl. Well, I came up with my own little Super Bowl bubble. I can tell you teams who I think can win it right now as roster is currently constructed. I can tell you who I think can win it right now, and I can tell you who's just outside the bubble, who's just outside, who has an outside chance. They can contend for it, maybe not necessarily win it right here and right now when it comes to the NFL season that is going to be starting up real soon within the next 2 months. So here's my Super Bowl bubble. I take everything into consideration. GM, coach, roster, and quarterback. I take all those into consideration. So who is in my Super Bowl bubble right now? The Chiefs, they got Andy Reid. They got Patrick Mahomes. They got a stellar roster. Even with crappy kind of wide receiver situation last year, you know, the Chiefs still made the Super Bowl and still won it. So I'm not going to ever deny Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes. So the Chiefs can win the Super Bowl right now. The 49ers can win the Super Bowl right now. They can because they made it. Now, do I think Brock Purdy's the guy? Hell no, I still don't believe that. But the way the roster currently is constructed, and Brock Purdy got them to a Super Bowl, who's to say the 49ers can't win the Super Bowl? I think they can definitely win it, and they probably should have won it this past year. So they can definitely win it. Like I said, this is who is currently constructed right now. The Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, I can't really see a single hole in their roster other than maybe one. They need one more piece at cornerback, but from top to bottom, the Lions are built well. I think the Lions can easily win right now. They were on the cusp of beating the 49ers last year. I think the Lions, as currently constructed, they can win the Super Bowl. The Ravens. There's only two teams I have from the AFC that can definitely win it right now. Buffalo used to be in that Super Bowl bubble last year, but that ship has sailed for me. That ship has sailed. So who else can win it? The Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, a solid offensive line, stellar receivers, and a defense that is always top 10 in the NFL. Each and every single year in every category, it feels like. And John Harbaugh at head coach. The Ravens, they're built for it. We got to see more from Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, but as currently constructed, the Ravens can win right now. And I think the same thing about the Philadelphia Eagles. They took a step back. I get that with roster changes and everything. And a lot of questions surrounding Jalen Hurts, but the fact of the matter is you do have Jalen Hurts. You still got a good offensive line despite Jason Kelce leaving for retirement. You got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, probably the best 1-2 punch wide receiver combo in the NFL. And now you have Saquon Barkley, who, for all intents and purposes, a lot of people think Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers is the best running back in the league. Yeah, put Saquon Barkley on a competent roster finally, rather than the New York dumpster fire Giants. Put Saquon Barkley now on a real roster. I think you're going to see similar numbers between Barkley and McCaffrey over this upcoming NFL season. So that's my Super Bowl bubble right now. Those are teams I think can win it right now. Chiefs, Niners, Lions, Ravens, Eagles. Now I got teams just outside the bubble. Texans, C.J. Stroud already is proving to be one of the best, probably a top 10 quarterback in the league already. And he was a rookie. Texans, I'll give them an outside shot. Young defense. They have a young roster. That's why they kind of got throttled by Baltimore. Baltimore seasoned. They had more talent. That's why they got beat by Baltimore in the divisional round last year playoffs. So I'll give the Texans an outside shot to contend for the Super Bowl. Cowboys, as much as I diss them and as much as I talk smack on Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy, it's still a well-constructed roster, but I still think they're on the outside looking in because of the play from Dak Prescott. The Packers. Jordan Love is proving something, and I think Green Bay struck gold again when it comes to quarterback. I think Jordan Love takes another step this year, especially adding Josh Jacobs to the roster. The wide receivers are young. The core is young. This is a young team on the up-and-coming rise. They're rising. I would buy some Packers stock right now. So, Packers, outside looking in. The Bengals and the Bills. I'll give those two. Those are my... And the Dolphins. Those are my last three. Outside looking in. Maybe can contend for it. Not entirely sure. Bengals, when Joe Burrow is healthy, he is the only quarterback that can consistently go up against Patrick Mahomes and beat him. He's the only one who's proven he can do it. So I'll take the Bengals to be an outside threat to make the Super Bowl. The Dolphins. Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Braxton Berrios. You know, they got a lot of depth on that team, and their defense is solid. They just got to stay healthy. And who did I just say? Oh, the Bills. Yeah. Buffalo Bills, as long as Josh Allen is still quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, I will always give them an outside chance to win the Super Bowl. They were inside my Super Bowl bubble last year, personally. I know I didn't make one last year because I really wasn't on, didn't too much sports back then when I first started. But Josh Allen has the talent. He still has his okay roster, an okay defense, but they lost a lot of pieces. They lost Stephon Diggs to the Texans. Big pickup for Houston. But as long as Josh Allen is on the Buffalo Bills, I'll always give them an outside shot to win the Super Bowl. So, who's in my Super Bowl bubble? Again, I'll reiterate, who can win it as currently constructed right now. The other teams may need a piece or two and a lucky break to go their way to win the Super Bowl. But currently constructed inside my Super Bowl bubble, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Lions, the Ravens, and the Eagles. Those are teams I think can win it right now. Just outside looking in, maybe needs a couple more pieces or maybe even a lucky break in the playoffs. The Texans, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Bills. That's my Super Bowl outside the bubble, looking in. They're on the cusp of making it inside. So that is who I think can currently win the Super Bowl and who can currently contend for the Super Bowl. One last topic. I'm going to do another bubble, and I'm going to do in honor of College Football 25 coming out today. And NCAA is ushering in a new era with the 12-team playoff this year. So I'm going to do a college football playoff bubble. Teams I think can win it as currently constructed right now. And I'm going to also put people who... So here's what it's going to be. A championship bubble. Those who are surefire candidates to probably make it and win the national title. And then I'll have outside looking in those who have an outside shot of winning the Natty this year. Because it's college football. It's always unprecedented. There's a lot of things that can happen. It's much more of a randomized factor than the NFL. The NFL, you can really predict who's going to be good and who's not. College football is a little bit tougher when it comes to predicting who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. I didn't think Michigan would go undefeated last year and win the national championship. I didn't think Washington was going to make the national championship last year, and look what happened. So that's that. But who can win it? Who's more like the surefire favorites to win the entire college football playoff this year? The Georgia Bulldogs. They've been the powerhouse of college football for recent memory. The Texas Longhorns, Quinn Ewers coming back. Texas is locked and loaded. They're ready to contend again. They came one game short of making the Natty. That's only because they went up against Michael Penix, who caught fire in a bottle this year and looked like one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Alabama. Despite Nick Saban's retiring, now Kalen DeBoer comes in. I think Alabama's just going to be just fine. Jalen Milroe coming back. Stellar offensive line. They still got great running backs and weapons. And there'll still be a defensive prowess in the SEC. I think Alabama, even though they have the lowest amount of plus minus for wins this year than Nick Saban's first year. I think they'll be fine. I think they can definitely win the national championship. One more team who can definitely win it, Ohio State. As much as I dog the Buckeyes, and as much as I think it's do or die for Ryan Day, they can win it. Their roster currently constructed, they can win it. So now who do I think can contend for it and has an outside shot to win the national championship? Oregon with Dillon Gabriel, the transfer from Oklahoma. I think Oregon is primed and ready to go. They'll be fine despite losing Bo Nix. I think Dillon Gabriel honestly is a better quarterback than Bo Nix. You know, maybe a hot take, but Oregon's going to be fine. I think they have an outside shot. Along with Oklahoma, Brett Venables, I think this is his second or third year with the Sooners, and he's getting them right. You know, brick by brick, he's building Oklahoma Sooners back into a powerhouse. Michigan, I know this is kind of far-fetched. They still got a good roster. They do not have J.J. McCarthy. They lost a lot of talent to the NFL, obviously, and they lost Harbaugh. But they can still contend. Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I love to smack talk, but they still have a good roster and a good young one at that. And with us ushering, with this new playoff format coming into play, a lot of these high-quality brand name teams are going to make it, and I think Notre Dame legitimately can have an outsider's, a puncher's chance to make it to the national championship and win it all. Like I said, these are all teams I think have an outside shot. And the final one, University of Miami. I think with the roster as currently constructed, they have a puncher's chance in every single game they go up against. I can list, I'm not going to do it today, but maybe I'll do it before the college football season starts because Miami's my favorite team. I know I'm sound biased, but as currently constructed with Cam Ward, a great wide receiving core, one of the deepest running back rooms in all of college football, a great offensive line, and a deep, deep front seven when it comes to that defense. Miami has a puncher's chance against any of those top four teams I mentioned earlier that can definitely win the national championship. Miami, when they're at their best, they've always had a puncher's chance to beat anybody in massive games and even blow people out. Ask Notre Dame what happened back in 2017. But that's who I think is in the quote-unquote college football playoff bubble. Inside the bubble, Georgia, Texas, Bama, Ohio State. Outside looking in and has a puncher's chance to win the playoff, Miami, Oregon, Oklahoma, Michigan, Notre Dame. And that's my playoff bubble for both NFL and college football. And that is going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I, again, thank you for making me a part of your day. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break